right, what's up, yins guys? Yeah, the past week or so already, we've been hearing on the TV news, Southern California. Was it like something like 13 kids or something? This couple had, and he supposedly was registered. Like I think at a home, it said on our couple different news stations that he was had himself registered as a school principal, and his home was like a school or something. How the hell did that happen? But yeah, he had these kids captive, anywhere from young, a few years old, to mid 30s, and according to different news stations, and even seeing it on some other news stations late at night when I was watching, these kids were devoid of basic knowledge that you teach your kids. I mean, deliberately, I guess they were deliberately screwing these kids' head up somehow. They had them chained up, and then the ones, I think 17-year-old got away or something. And I mean, this makes me think of if you ever, any of you Henry Rollins fans ever heard the Henry Rollins' entire CD work or whatever, spoken word work called Everything. His spoken word project or spoken word work called Everything. Henry Rollins said a thing that made me think of these kids where he was, I mean, I'm not saying Henry hates children or anything like that, but this rings true when I'm seeing about this thing when Henry said, with people with their whole trail of children behind them, why do you need a whole tribe? Have one and then adopt one. And then he kind of said, like, yeah, they just need somebody to molest and mutilate. This is what it sounds like with these parents. It's almost as if it actually resembles something I saw when my girlfriend had the Dr. Phil show on, I think 2 years ago, where somebody in this home at a lower scale, not quite in Southern California, like a few less kids, I think 3 or 4 kids. I'd have to find the article and look it up, but Dr. Phil was talking. He interviewed, I think, a couple of kids. They had the kids in these big rabbit, the large rabbit cages they put dogs in, or rabbits, where like people the size of you and me can crawl in. They had them kept in cages and hardly feeding them. And those people too. But anyway, yeah, there have been a lot of other cases of this shit where people are fucking having these kids just to do that shit. I mean, they must be sick in the head. Why the fuck would they even have kids? It's almost like their property. People shouldn't even treat animals like that, but people are caught treating animals that way. I mean, whether you have a dog or a cat, or whether you have kids, I mean, you don't treat them that way. You feed them, or you just don't freaking have them. But yet there's some warped assholes out there in this world that almost like or have a kid or even have animals just so they can do sadistic ass shit like that. I mean, but anyway, these people ought to be like taken out in public and then have their ass spanked until they could not sit down for a year. And it should be like a live spanking over live television. But this justice system is devoid of creativity. That's unfortunate in certain cases, but damn shame. I mean, how can anybody? I mean, just when you think you heard it all in the news, but like I said, there were cases like this, over the years, like the one, like I said, in the Dr. Phil show, or you guys could probably find other articles out there that's like, people have these kids, and it's like they're treating them like property for their own reasons and all that. And instead of having them grow up, they want them to prosper, maybe go to college if they want to, or be something, or be able to get old enough to make their own money, or go out and get married. Instead, you get these rare cases where people are having these kids and they're like property. And some of them are even literally like property and slave labor, just household, like a labor force, so they can sit down and on their ass. And there was cases like that too. These trashy individuals, they have these kids. Some of them drink and smoke more than others. Um, and the kids, in some cases, were an accident unplanned, and they just, instead of teaching the basics of life, they treat them like property and keep them. And like in this case with this one I was talking about on news, the Southern California, 13 kids. What got me is one was fucking mid 30s. So you figure what people like that can do to a kid up until they're in their mid 30s. You can teach them to be real. What do you call it? Scared of everything. If you don't teach them the basics, you can have a 30-year-old person literally with the mind of an 8-year-old. Deliberately make them retarded. Mentally brainwash them, so to speak. There's a lot of religious cults that are accused of that. You got some really fucked up religious cults out there that make religion look bad. That back in the past 100 years, these people lived in this country was very rural, and people were were able to indoctrinate their kids like that, and only enough of education so they stay obedient to the master and everything else. And just because you were given birth to by your mother or your parents or your father made you, so to speak, and your mother gave birth to you, teaching the kids that they owe them forever or whatever, and teach them to be. It's almost like Glenn Danzig saying in his song, "You can't keep them in the dark for life. I'm gonna show them my world." You could interpret that song the way you want it.